another episode of the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. My name is Zach, working and hanging out in the garage with my buddy Christian.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, man? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Dude, Christian, thanks for joining us all the way from Jinx, America here in Tulsa.
America. Hey, someone on your podcast the other day said Yukon, America.
Oh, yeah.
They got to cut it out. That's the Jinx thing.
It's Jinx America.
Jinx America.
Get it right, Anthony, or pay the price. Yeah. Dude, we are so glad to have you on the show today, Sharon Doom, because one, you're a new friend, but two, I think you might be actually one of the few ones that could solve the riddle of where Chad is on Chadcation, because you actually know Chad.
I do know Chad.
Spent a good deal of time with Chad, had Chad out to do a little D-Now with y'all or whatever. Yeah. Man, Christian, before we jump into the what's what and the hey, where in the world is Chad Higgins today? Where's he at? Where is he at today? Yeah. We got thoughts. Okay.
I grew up in Oklahoma in the Baptist student ministry world, and so as a student, I knew Chad whenever he was a youth pastor, just as he was the funny guy at every event, the guy that always made us laugh whenever he did announcements. Then I got older and got into ministry, and I've been around Chad, like you said, at D-Nows and things. According to my students, if you were to ask them, Chad did our last D-Now.
Yeah.
And they love him. Okay, so they
rightfully so. Rightfully so.
They've made his picture their phone backgrounds. Okay. They show people his picture and they say we chatted them.
So Chad's not just a photo or a person.
He's
a verb. Chad's a verb.
Let's chat him is what they say, man. And they get him, and so they would think he's probably somewhere climbing a mountain, conquering the world, a Viking. They think Chad's all in.
Dude, Chad the Viking Adventurer is a show that the Discovery Channel needs. Just Chad in the great outdoors. Yeah.
But me knowing Chad and knowing where I've spent most of some ministry time with him, especially from the first D-Now I did whenever I was in Owasso, I think Chad's probably just in a Waffle House right now. I think Chad
daytime Waffle House,
Waffle House booth, making people laugh with stories. That was my first real experience with Chad, and that's just how I always picture him.
Dude, if anybody's gonna make benefit of the free Wi-Fi at a Waffle House, it's our guy Chad. It is. Okay, how do you think he gets his hash browns? So what is it?
Oh man,
is he scatter, smothered, diced? What's the?
Smothered.
Smothered. Okay, definitely smothered. Definitely smothered. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
What is your Waffle House like when you go?
All-star breakfast.
All-star breakfast.
You have to.
No hashies. What about the All-Star is your go-to? Why All-Star?
It's like you get a little bit of everything.
Okay.
You get eggs, bacon.
Okay.
Waffle, all that.
Dude, walk us through. Are you scrambling the eggs? What are we doing?
Over easy with the toast.
Oh, okay.
You put the over easy egg on the toast and you let the yolk run on it. Ever since I was a kid, that's been it. So.
Now, it's Waffle House, is that a regular one for you, or is that a late night, we had a big weekend, or is that a Saturday morning?
I'm actually very rarely ever at a Waffle House.
Okay.
It's not, I know a lot of people love it. They call it their Waffle Home, but it's got to be... It's got to be a group of people that are just like Owasso. We went every year for D-Now. It was the tradition, after first service, take the band and speaker to Waffle House. Okay. So that's where I spent the first amount of time with Chad.
We're so glad you guys have come in from Alabama. Have you guys heard about our Waffle Home? Yeah.
Have you been scared at 11 o'clock while you try to eat these eggs?
Okay. Have you seen the Waffle House training videos?
No.
Dude, if you need a YouTube deep dive, they have these Waffle House training videos for various scenarios. It's unreal. They really do caution and protect their folks at a myriad of the opera. Yeah.
So. I mean, I've never not had a unique experience at Waffle House though. It's never been a normal. Just my friend Joe Irwin does TikTok and Instagram stuff.
Yeah,
and one of the ladies that was a waitress at the Waffle House recognized him. And she followed him. She's like, I've seen you. And she still comments on everything now. And so it's that's the lady from Waffle House. She loves him. And so
picking up followers at the Waffle House. That's a bold play, Joe. That's a bold play. You're right. I don't think I've been to a Waffle House and there's not been a story worth telling after.
Absolutely.
Whether it was something questionably violent or a health scare or just a strange now I'm a late night Waffle House guy. That's one thing. So you saying Chad is going early, that tells me I'm actually wondering if he's okay.
That's true. If you are there before midnight, there might be something going on in your life.
If you're there before 9 a.m. I'm more concerned than if you're there after 9 p.m.
Right.
That's
absolutely.
Yeah. What choices did you make that you're this is the
Out
only
of
place.
every breakfast place open,
Right,
you
right.
went there.
Yeah, like I don't deserve anything else.
Yeah.
This is like a real, it's like a real guilty, like this
Right.
is what I've earned.
Yep. Absolutely.
So fun. Well, Christian, for the folks that don't know you a little bit, man, give us a little bit how you ended up in youth ministry. I know we got some big topics that we're going to talk about today, about connecting with students, networking with other youth ministers, and so to that effort, like, man, help us get to know you a little bit more, because, man, like, just to be really truthful and honest, like, you're like another, like, one of, like, we've had some younger guys like Anthony and Micah and some other folks. Man, I love hearing from, like, it makes me sound like an old person, but like Gen Z youth pastors. Like, it really feels like there is like a new wave and a new era. And so I just want folks to get to know you, how you got in ministry, because I do love this story of just like the like enthusiasm and excitement to get into ministry. But just, dude, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so, man, growing up, I was always in church. I grew up here in Tulsa, in the Tulsa area. I've been here most of my life, and so grew up in church and loved church. Like, that was my safe place as a kid. Had some family issues growing up with parents getting divorced and some tragedies and thing where church was always the safe place. Like, I wanted to be there. I felt loved. I felt comforted whenever those things happened. Like, those were the people that took care of us, and and so I loved church.
The church was like, I mean, in a model way, church, and even youth ministry was like a family or like a home for you. That's like, powerful to hear.
When the doors were open, I was there, and when the doors were closed, sometimes I was still there.
Still there.
It
like,
was that.
Grew up in it. Even was family involved, or really, are you one of the students that was there because like it meant so much to you?
Yeah, my brothers went. My mom, I have older brothers. My mom went, and so they were. But I was definitely like, I was the one that was there every single time. The doors were open, and if they weren't open, if they would let
or
me
like
in.
maybe playing games,
Both.
cause a little bit of trouble.
Definitely both.
We appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much. Yeah,
absolutely. So, but it was great. And so as I got older, though, I got started in college and decided like I'm gonna go do physical therapy is what I thought I wanted to do, and so I started college for that, and I was just serving in the student ministry at a church here. My brother ended up going into student ministry. He's 8 years older than me. He's a pastor at a church, which you didn't know we were brothers.
I didn't
until
know.
The last time we talked.
So AJ, he kept saying brother. I thought he meant brother in the Lord, but this is my on-camera confession.
Actual brother.
AJ, this is your real brother. And we talked about it.
Yeah. So I was just serving in his student ministry, and I loved it. Like, more than I ever enjoyed, like, whatever I was doing in college or whatever jobs I was working at the time, or I just like there was jobs in college that I quit because they were like, hey, I need you to start working Wednesday nights, and I was like, just not gonna do it. Like,
dude,
like I love like being at church. Like, that's
you're like model student. You're like model youth. I love it.
Right. And so, but I really had people started asking me like, have you ever thought about like being in student ministry? And here's one of the things I talk with my students that I think is important whenever they tell me like I may be interested in ministry. I was like not thinking that I should go into ministry because I didn't have the big call. Like, because growing up, all I ever heard about is I remember whenever God called me to ministry.
That
and it's like
big call
this
moment.
big moment of like, this is all I know. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I didn't feel like I'd ever had that. Like, God, so like I'm always going to help with ministry, but I'll go do something else. And had a pastor at a different church that I was talking with that was just really wise, and he was like, dude, you love it. Like, you're passionate about it. You talk about it. You love investing in students. He's like, God has called you to it. He's like, he's gifted you. He's given you the passions. He's like, do you think God's going to be upset that you choose to be a student pastor because you never felt like you had your big call, like your big aha
emotional
moment? And he was like,
moment response. Yeah,
God's not going to be mad about that. Like, he's not going to be upset that you want to do ministry. And so that was huge for me of like, and how I explain it to students. Like, it doesn't have to be this, you are at D now and you were crying and you knew right then that this is the only thing I'll ever do with my life. Like, if you are passionate, if you're passionate about it, if you have abilities to do it, and you could see like, I could do this, like, do it. Like, God's given you that passion for a reason. That's a call.
Man, that's such a refreshing version of the story, because I think for so many folks in ministry, like, the call story is powerful, and it means a lot. And if that's you listening, like, that is something that we encourage you to hold on to, because sometimes like a job will make you question the work, but the call will remind you of who called you. But there's that element of like preparedness, man. Like, that just I hear in your story of like that God had been at work for this a long time, coupled with just knowing how much ministry meant to you is real. Like, again, youth ministers often either seem to be like they're paying back a debt because they were like the worst kid in ministry, or for I would say for the two of us at this table, youth ministry was such a blessing in the life for us and our family that we feel almost owed to
Absolutely.
it in the ways in which it just made a big difference to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Could tell them a little bit about
Okay.
how you got your first job, because this
Yeah.
is what I love, is that like everybody else is like, man, I wish I had opportunities.
Right.
But you went out and made some.
You gotta grind. You gotta. Some people wait and some people go, and it's like,
yeah.
but yeah, no, seriously, so I talked to the church I was at, and they didn't have like any internships or like a program or anything at that point, and
that didn't stop you.
It didn't stop me. And
Some
so
people
I was
would have
like,
stopped. They're like, we don't have an internship program. I guess I can't intern.
but I was like, man, God's calling me to do this now, not like 4 years from now, whenever you're done with college, or like I feel like God's telling me like do this now, like you're passionate, this is what you love. And so I actually went to our association, like Tulsa Metro Baptist Association website, and just
shout out to the local association job board. Hey, you keep posting. That's a good faithful work. That's right.
And I just went and got the directory of every Baptist church in Tulsa, and I went through and I just said, okay, these are the churches that like I feel like are healthy, that I can learn from them, and so I just
checking out websites, looking at like what are they up to,
going through hundreds of churches, like asking the people, pastors I know, what do you know about this church, and so then I'm got my resume together, made like a ministry resume for the first time, and a cover letter about like what I felt like the Lord was calling me to, and where my passions were, and then just sent it out to the youth pastors at all those churches. And just said, hey, I'm looking for an internship. I want to start in student ministry. Like, where do we go?
Where do we go?
Where do we go? Anybody got anything? Anybody, and it was a lot of like, it was like 2 or 3 weeks before I really heard anything going. So I was pretty discouraged at first. A lot of youth pastors that reached out, and great. I appreciate them reaching back out and just going, hey, we're praying for you. Keep going. Like, we don't have an internship spot or a program, but like if I can help you. And so I got to have some coffees and meet some people and network that way. But then First Baptist Owasso reached out to me, and they're like, hey, we got your email a couple weeks ago. We want to set up an interview with you. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Great. And they're like, who told you like to apply? Like, who told you we were hiring?
who let you know? We hadn't even posted it yet.
Yeah. And they're like, was it one of our like pastors? And I was just like, no, like it was just the Lord. Like he told me I needed to be in ministry.
I was just out here on this holy hustle.
Yeah. And so they had told me, like, I sent an email on Tuesday, and the day before that Monday, he had got approved to like hire an intern on like a paid position. So he's like, I just figured someone on our staff who knew I was approved told you, because you like I got approved for the position. The next day I had your email. He's like, there was no like, and so I knew no one there. I didn't know anyone in the church. I didn't know anyone on staff. I just went to a brand new church, and it was like, you're the youth intern now, and no one knows me, and it was great. I loved it. I learned a lot there, and it was one of my favorite, just moments of ministry and learning from those guys. But leaving from a church where I always grew up with my family too, to jump into a church where I knew no one and I was by myself was like, okay, I'm trusting God.
Challenge and test. What is ministry really made of? What does it look like? But man, I just, again, for the folks that are maybe in the middle of a spot, or for, again, younger folks in ministry that are wondering like, or, where is my opportunity? Where can I, like the fact that you were like, no, like we treated it like a project. It's like, well, we're in an area full of a lot of churches. I want to try to figure out what the good, healthy churches are that I would want to be a part of, and then prepare myself to, again, that to the mentor that said, God has prepared a work in you. Dude, evidence of the fruit is your preparation in kind too. So, dude, powerful. But now serving at an amazing church, one of our dear friend sister churches here in the Tulsa area, Jinx America. One of the ministry topics that we've talked about a lot, and I see it even as a third party to your ministry, is the way in which y'all are growing and connecting with students like in the area. Like there is just, I'll say it for you. Y'all are doing some really cool, growing, flourishing things. But when I asked you like what you're passionate about, you named something that I think for folks to hear is really important. And that's the way in which there's almost this like desire or like holy pursuit to connect students from the fringe in. And I think that's a tension that most ministries probably feel, and then they're not sure what to do. And so just knowing the quality of what y'all are doing and that being a passion for you, man, would you give us some insight or effort or understanding, like what are y'all doing to help kind of connect the fringe in?
Yeah, and I'll say on that topic, like absolutely, we want students to connect into our ministry. Like if you're running your ministry in a healthy, godly way, like if they will connect to my ministry, then they're going to grow in their relationship with God. Like if they'll do the things that we're setting out, and if you don't know that about your ministry, then you've got to start over and just go, okay, then what do we need to do to build that pathway? But and so we do all kinds of things to try to help people feel connected, mostly relationship based, but actually more on that question for me. is and like where my passion is. We did this disciple story thing personally for our staff about like what is a calling you have and what is something, you know, God's gifted you with that you're passionate about. And it was this whole like 2 long day. And at the end of it, you get down to like 2 words. And mine was pursuing wonders. And so that was something that I just like the staff saw in me that I started realizing God had passioned me in. And it was more than just like actually getting the fringe kids plugged into my ministry, but just how do I actually stay connected and disciple those kids that aren't ever going to get plugged into my ministry.
Okay.
Like they're, you know, like I want kids to be in my ministry, but the ones that I know that are just going to show up on Sunday mornings or whenever their parents make them that are never going to actually come to my ministry, like they still deserve my attention and people to invest in them and pour into them as well.
Yeah.
And so it's just something like God gifted me with naturally that I didn't realize I was doing it until some people really like pointed it out to me and was like, hey, if you're more intentional with this. And so really all it is, but it's just being there, man. It's always showing up. Like there's those kids, like I text them every week and just ask them how they're doing. Like no, if I told our adult leaders, like, yeah, I text, you know, I'll just say a random name, Gus this week.
Yeah.
They would be like, who's Gus? They wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But I knew that kid came to camp once. He'll show up some Sunday mornings, but he still needs somebody still needs to be there for him and check in on him. And so, you know, like playing basketball, I have kids that will come and play basketball. We'll open up the gym one night and I'll text them, invite them that they will come play basketball and then talk to me about stuff while we're playing basketball.
Yeah.
They will never come on a Wednesday night. Like even though they like me, they won't. I don't know why. I don't know why. But
so
you know,
programmatically, maybe not tethered, but to the life of the church as both like community and connection, and you as pastoral figure, there is a relational web.
Because
of
our call is to go and make disciples and teach them everything that God's commanded them, not go and make them connected to your ministry and hope that it sticks. And so I'm like, man, if they're not going to catch my ministry, that doesn't change my call to invest in them and to disciple them. And so, you know, you can't do that for everyone. Like, but there are kids that need it, that need that person that may never actually be your Wednesday, Sunday kid, but they will connect with you personally. A big thing is like I open up my house for like big basketball games or football games or like UFC fights. There was some this Saturday. And a whole group of like one of my adults and like 15 high school boys came over. And they watched the UFC fights.
Just creating space.
You know, and it's like there's kids that came to watch the UFC fights that are like friends of friends that will come to church every once in a while. But whenever they show up and they're in my house and they're like, okay, this is a normal guy, like, you know, they'll open up and they'll talk and they'll be around. And then it's just like, I try to go to everything in the community and try to not be in charge of anything. Like,
say more. Because I think that's one of those, like pastorally, like there's some folks that are like, well, I want to be in charge of the things that I can be in charge of. Right. So say more, my friend.
This, and actually I've had some students tell me this, like they want to see you. It means like those are the kids that I'm seeing at basketball games. I'm seeing them at football games. And if I just say,
not their coach, you're just there.
Right. And if I'm saying, hey Gus, hey Jack, like that's all it takes is that they saw that I saw them and I know them. And like even if I don't remember their name, here was something that was hard for me at first. Like I wouldn't remember their name, like maybe I shouldn't go say hi to them. If I see someone, even if we're in a grocery store, we're in the most awkward position, if I see them, I'm going to go say hi and acknowledge them somehow because now they know he knows me. Like he remembers me, he knows me. So no matter where I'm at, if I see someone that I know, I'm going to go say hi to him, even if it's like a weird place to see someone. I don't know, you know, but it's like I'm always going to go say hi because they're like, okay, he sees me, he knows me, like he acknowledged me. And so like FCA, I go and I will walk around the Jinx FCA and be there and help. I don't want to be in charge of it. I know there's a lot of like,
oh, dude.
There are other student ministers who want to be in charge of it. Like, I want to help.
Now you're stepping on toes because some folks are like, I'm not going to be a part unless
I want to help empower the
yeah.
students who are leading it to lead it. Like, I will be a resource to them.
Yeah.
But I have my service. I have my Wednesday nights like that. That is what I'm in charge of. And everywhere else, like, I just want to be a friendly person that people can know and love and trust. And so I show up, but like I'm not going to go sit in the student section during a football game. Like that's their space. I'm going to walk by and say hi and like make sure I connect
See the
with
folks,
them.
the parents that are there.
You know? But
okay, help us a little bit because this is one of the things I think for some folks, we've talked about on the podcast before, the relational stuff doesn't always get the right assessment for the work that it is. What is your, do you have like a rhythm or a system or a tool to help keep you reminded or mindful of like, man, we haven't seen Gus in a few weeks? Is it just like catch as you can, or do you have like the like reminders or things set for stuff? Like how do you have a large ministry,
right?
Like there's only so much bandwidth that you have. So how do you manage that? of who gets your attention, who gets your messages, who gets your reminders.
I have been mapping it out a lot more and trying to make it organized. And so like I have a prayer journal, and part of that is always have like one of the days is like students, that I'm praying for that I haven't seen in a while. And so I'll text them whenever I'm praying for them. Hey, I'm praying for you this week. How can I pray for you?
So not just
but
praying,
I don't text them and say, I haven't seen you at church. I really wish you'd be here. Like, no, I'm thinking about you. Yeah. I'm thinking about your life with Christ. How can I pray for you?
Well, because they get it. Like if pastor is messaging them, like if you are messaging them, you don't have to just be like, hey man, don't forget the thing that we have. Like,
they know.
Being mindful, reminded, doesn't have to always come with a specific like invite too. Now, invites are important. We want to create an invitation culture in our ministry. But dude, if you send a message to Gus and you're like, bro, I haven't seen you in a few weeks. How can I be praying for you? You don't have to guilt him with like, bro, you haven't been at church. Like, the youth pastor texted him. He got it.
Yeah,
like,
he knows.
He not dumb.
He knows. He knows. I probably should have been there.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, or it's he does still care. He hasn't forgotten. Like it is that, especially in a ghosting age of like teenagers and dating, and like, man, we either are together or we never talk again. That someone in your life would keep up with you even after like a period of not hearing from them. Dude, that's like countercultural, right? Like that's like, So
and that's the other part of it though, and it's just one of the passions and giftings that the Lord gave me. But it's just like my mind thinks about people like that are on the outside. And for me, it can be in anything. Like if I think about them, I'm gonna text them right then. And so that's like a big thing. Like even if I'm on social media, and Gus posted something on a story, and I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't texted. Like I'm gonna at that point right then just text him, hey, the Lord,
let the algorithm guide you.
Yeah, right. And I'll tell him like, hey, the Lord put you on my mind today. Like how are you doing? How can I pray for you? Because then they know like you were thoughtful about it. Like it's not just like, hey, I saw your story. Are you like that was the way that it got to the point where like I need to check in on him. And so if I see them tagged in a Facebook post or on Instagram or even that, I'm like, oh, I haven't checked in with them a little bit. Like, and so I just try to send texts like right away. Like,
that's good.
Just often.
Don't delay.
Yeah. How you doing? And like I've seen the spiritual fruit of it. I've had kids go off to college that, like I said, if you ask my adult leaders, hey, what about Gus? They'd be like, oh, the kid that only came to Falls Creek every year. Like that's all they would know about him.
Yeah.
But him and I mean, he's in college now, and he'll text me a couple times a month asking me to pray for certain things or asking for advice. And it's like we've kept that relationship that helps him be able to see the Lord through me. That didn't happen in church, just because I would send a thoughtful text every once in a while, That's
awesome.
And so yeah.
Well, man, tell me a little bit more. I know that one of the questions that we get a lot on the podcast for folks is the ways in which, in the things that we can structure, we're trying to move students to either a deeper level of discipleship or more engagement. And one of the things I know about your church and your ministry is that there's a really, third party looking in. I know you probably be like, well, hold on, but just a third party looking in, there seems to be a really strong, healthy culture of like students that are like leadership or core. Man, how are you structuring that? Because again, I think sometimes like that, for folks, they just want to hear what someone else is doing. And that is a key area for so many ministries of every size, is moving students from being either kind of on the fringe or around or there sometimes to actively engage. Like what are some of the elements, the things that you would attribute as like, man, we love this is working, or maybe even cautions of like, nah, don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, it is newer for us of setting up those leadership teams and how to run them. We started them last year at the beginning of the school year, so we've been doing it for about a little over a year now. So I've been at First Baptist Jinx for on staff for about 4 years, but I was the associate to a student pastor before, and I have
kind of in the system for a little bit.
I've taken over as the student pastor over the last year and a half, 2 years, and so there's been some small changes that we've been doing along the way. One of the biggest ones we did was serve teams, and so beforehand, like me and the other student pastor and maybe a couple volunteers pretty much like did everything on Wednesdays and Sundays. Like we're gonna show up early and set all this up. We're gonna make sure that the sound's working. We're gonna make sure like it was just
the same few folks making it happen.
And mainly just the staff. It was mainly like we're just gonna make sure everything's ready, so whenever they show up, they can just. And what I realized is like, man, there's lots of students around here who get here early, like who would help if they had the opportunity. Like, and it became such a like, and it wasn't our students' fault, but it became the come set and listen and not the come and participate, like come and own. And so we opened serve teams last year, and we were like, there may be no one that shows it, because we did a Sunday night, which we don't do Sunday nights like with our church, and so we said, hey, Sunday night we're gonna open up serve teams. We're gonna tell you what they are. You can sign up to serve. And we were like, there may be no one who shows up. Like, they may just think. And we had like 60 students show up for our first serve
Ready to
night.
go. Yeah.
And we were like, okay, this. It blew me out of the water. I was like, I did not know, And so they signed up for different teams, and we just set up teams for everything, for every student. We defined like, here's what you do and here's how you win in your role, and so that way they know like, these are my objectives. And so we have a greeting team. We call it like our welcome team. We have a welcome team. We have a host team. They actually will go on stage with an adult and do the announcements and host the service. Yeah. We have a game team, and so they do one Wednesday a month. They get to do a game before
design
service.
the thing and make it happen.
They plan the game. They do all of it. They just tell me, hey, these are the supplies we need, and I order it off Amazon for them. Like, other than that, they're doing all of it.
So like every element has
sound, worship,
all of it.
Cafe team, check-in team that are checking people in whenever they come in, like everything that happens in our student ministry that like adults were just doing before. Now we just told the adult, hey, you're going to be in charge of this team.
Chaperone it.
Yeah, you're going to have 8 students that you're going to schedule to serve at least once a month, and you're just going to make sure that they are doing what they need to do. Like, you don't have to, like, and they love it. Like, our students, we told them show up, at 5:45 to set things up, and now they show up at 5:15 to set things up because they're just excited to be there and have something to do. And so it's like, it has been huge to watch them go in the way that they have felt pride in what happens in Wednesday nights, because they're like, we helped make this happen. Like, what the Lord is doing here, we're not just sitting and watching, we're a part of. Yeah. And so it has been just tremendous watching how they've stepped up to serve on serve teams and serve each other. So,
well, and again, I think that's the missing ingredient for so many folks is like, it's extra work. So make sure to tell the folks, serve teams are extra work.
But on the front side.
On the front side, that's right.
It took a lot of time to develop, like, okay, here's all of the, and like, I told you this earlier, actually, I'm a big fan of like resourcing other people. I'm not afraid to ask for help.
That's
if somebody's already done it and they're doing it well, why should I spend like multiple days trying to create something whenever they've already created it? And I can go, hey, can you help me with what you've created, and I'll adjust it to what fits our needs. And so it was an Oklahoma Baptist guy who's like, we have these serve teams.
This is how we do.
And I changed them for how we would use them for our students instead of starting at square one. Yeah. So if you want to do serve teams, I can send you all of our
Christian's got you. Yeah.
All of our serve team stuff. Well, and then,
go ahead. Yeah.
But it's all the work on the front end. Yeah. But then now on Wednesdays, whenever I get there and I just walk around and I just get to talk to it's so freeing on Wednesdays. Yeah. I'm not running around like the tech stuff's going crazy. I got to fix this.
Kicking the legs out of the table, setting the game up.
I actually get to focus on investing in the students and like knowing their names and saying hi and just walking around, and everyone else, in their small pockets are making everything else run and work. And so,
well, and it's a chance that it gets to scale with you. Like one of the things for our folks doing youth ministry roadmap course right now, like scale is one of the key tenets of it. And I think sometimes we imagine things that would not scale, but whether you have a ministry of 20 or 120, 200, whatever, like you need a percentage of them at every step along the way to help with those things. And again, the payoff, like that's the part. Like, yes, it would be easier to just do it yourself, to just take a Wednesday afternoon, set everything up and then, but the connection that it gives the students and the ownership is the payoff that's in dividends. And I gotta imagine, and I'd love to check in with you in a couple years, like you do it long enough and it's now cultural, right? And you don't even have to it is gonna just take care of itself, because it's one of those like, oh no, man, like I look forward to being on the host team when I'm in high school or a junior or whatever kind of deal. So yeah.
And I mean, and it will help your ministry, because even I know you said I'm one of the younger youth pastors, but even like it's teaching our students how to use social media in a good way, which is full of evil. And for most youth ministries, it's like just stay away from social media for students.
Just don't.
but like we set up a social media team. Yeah. And like I'm old enough now that I don't know how to make reels and what's cool about them. And they will.
Well, what's the right sound to use?
I mean, I've got like 4 or 5 students now who will send me reels all throughout the week. Can I make this? Can I make this? I'm like, sure, you make it. Yeah. Send it to me and we'll post it.
We'll approve it.
And so that saved me hours from trying to figure out how to make 1 reel a week to say, hey, that we're having church this Wednesday.
Well, and it's formational in a way that's not just lecture based. Like that is like. So many student ministries, the modes in which students are able to test and learn is either sitting and listening or sitting and discussing.
Yep.
And so anything that activates students to serve and share their gifts, whether it's behind a computer, in front of a phone, or on the gym floor, man, that just feels like real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
been good.
Okay. I will ask you though. So I teased a little bit that you are in the fresh crop of youth ministry folks, but you have been around enough years that I think for the folks that need to hear, man, at this point, you've been at the same church for 4 years. You were at a couple other places a few years before that.
Right.
You probably have a pretty strong opinion about doing ministry. So how do you stay fresh to it, renewed to it? Because I think for a lot of folks, Chad, I talk about it a lot. There's this bell curve of like the first 2 years, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then like years 4 through 7 or 9, you're like, I got this. And then maybe or maybe not, you hit a wall and you're like, oh, I need help actually.
Yeah.
So like, how are you staying fresh where you still love the thing and you're still about it and it's not just like a chore or a task? Because again, you exude passion for it. So Christian, help us have passion again.
Right. My biggest thing is what I was saying earlier. I'm never afraid to ask or to, hey, someone's doing this well. Instead of going, how can I mimic exactly what they're doing? I'll just ask them, hey, what are you doing? Like why is this working so well for you? And then seeing like, how would that fit in with my student ministry? And so you have to surround yourself in places that you can do that. I know y'all have like cohorts that people can join. I'm in a student ministry cohort that we meet online on Zoom, and there's people from around the country every Wednesday morning.
Just about it.
Yeah. And we talk about personal life and we talk about but like, there's a lot of ideas those guys go, hey, and we do a thing called like leader in the middle, at least like once a month, where it's just like, hey, someone who has a question that they need advice, like, how do you do this? You're just going to be the one to ask a question, and we're all going to tell you what we've experienced, and you take away what you want from it. And so always putting yourself in places, to learn and to grow and to be willing to change things is super important. And I'm just like, I would rather ask for help over and over again than fail on my own. And so I ask a lot. Like, I'm big on like, God has put the relationships in my life for a reason. I'm just going to ask lots and lots of questions.
Man, and so again, that humility starts younger, because that's I think one of the things people often wait to get humble instead of staying humble.
Right.
And so I think that's probably, man, hearing you say it that way with such wisdom is true. That's one of the things that, like, because again, like there's sometimes folks that are almost so unteachable that you're like, man, I guess whenever he gets crushed, maybe he'll come calling or whatever. So dude, just thank you for that humility, but also the invitation to others that like, man, like this is not a competitive sport. Like this youth ministry is a team sport, whatever city you're playing at or whatever. So
well, and I will say to go with that, the greatest thing is like the greatest gift you can give your ministry is your personal holiness. And so that is number one, and one thing that our staff has been so encouraging and accountable with, because there's been churches in the past that I worked at where nobody ever actually asked me while I'm on staff, how is your spiritual life going? Like, how are you spending time with God in the week? Like, they just assumed because I'm on staff I am.
Right.
But really, like, I was doing a lot of things for God without God, you know?
Sermon writing doesn't always evoke personal holiness.
Right.
And that's,
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I'm at church all the time. I'm always hearing about God's word, but am I really sitting down and like spending my time to pray with God and to just read scripture for myself? Like, and a lot of times there wasn't checks and balances or any accountability. Yeah. And so like our church now has been super accountable. Like every week we do a check-in and we do, and our pastor does it in just such a loving way too. Not like are you doing your job? But that was one of the things our pastor told us, like the greatest, more than any idea you have, more than your personality or how good you are at speaking or your serve teams or anything, the greatest gift you can give actually anything, your family, your life, your ministry is your personal holiness. Like we can't take people somewhere we don't know how to get to. And so like that's number one is like, am I spending time with God? Because whenever I do, I'm like, I want them to experience this. Like it's an overflow of like, that's what keeps me passionate about it. It's not just we're having fun, but it's like, man, what I'm experiencing on a daily joy with Christ, which actually isn't the big fun moments.
Come on now.
I just want them to have that too and to lean into it. So
the overflow, right? That's like the ministry has to come from the overflow because it's far too much effort to just try to fabricate it and like muscle it or white knuckle it or whatever. Okay. What's something that you're doing now differently than you did when you first started? Positive, negative, habit, holiness,
Yep.
whatever. Like what is something, because we're always trying to figure out ways to improve. So what
Yeah.
are some things that you've tweaked, adjusted, done different in the last year and a half than you did in the first couple years?
So, like I said, I started in ministry really young. Like my first internship, I was like 19, and I just kept going. And so first, whenever I would do sermons, it's really just like how we would decide what we're preaching on Wednesday nights. It was usually like a Google, like, sermon bumpers, and I found one I liked, and it's like, okay, this one's called Masks. I'm gonna come up with a 4-week series because it has a cool video about masks, and I'm gonna
find video, write sermon.
right. And that's what it was. Like, I'm gonna do all these topical things. I'm gonna find the ones that look cool, and then I'm gonna somehow try to find a sermon that, and I catch myself like just basically writing only topical messages, pulling scripture out, and so now it's changed where we do a word of the year. We started it last year, so this is our second year of doing it.
Youth ministry wide or church wide?
Student ministry.
So
last year we did Wednesday nights. We make it a big deal, like we're gonna announce this thing, and we did.
You could do like a word drop, like drop the word.
Yeah,
like
this year we did an Instagram poll of like, what do you think the word is? Wrong answers only, and then we played all of the funny ones in service before we did it. It was fun. It was But last year was the year of the neighbor, and so we did T-shirts and stickers and like. Students
everything
are learning
about neighboring.
Yeah, and they're learning a million things in their life, and they're like, you can teach different topics but like if you tell them for a whole year, I want you every service we do, like we're going to talk about different stuff, but how does this help me love my neighbor the way that Jesus commanded us to? Like that helps them for the whole year go, I can grow in this one thing. I can keep doing it. And so our big thing was like year of the neighbor. This isn't about inviting people to church though. Like we didn't want our students to feel like this is about me getting more numbers so I look good. Like we told them this is how you love your neighbor even if they will never come to church.
It's not the year of the attender. It's the year of the neighbor.
And we saw so much fruit from that in the way. And so we just taught, we set through that passage in Luke where, Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then he goes on to tell the story of the Good Samaritan. And so we just broke that down and go, what is everything you learn from this that teaches you how to love your neighbor? And then we did series all around it. So this year's the year of the devoted. We're doing the year of the devoted. And so we're going through like devoted daily, devoted to scripture will be a sermon series, devoted to prayer, devoted to each other, devoted to your circle. So like where God has put you, devoted through trials. And so we'll go through, and every sermon scripture will be about like being daily devoted to God. And so it's the scripture of, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. And so it says, take up your cross daily. And so we're talking about how do you do that every day? And so that's what we're teaching through, and like having one focus for the year. We did stickers and T-shirts and all that stuff again, but it helps the students go, okay, this year I'm going to learn how to be devoted to God. And we're just going to go through that. And we're trying something new this year. We're doing 3 weeks of teaching and 1 week of training through our Wednesday nights.
Okay, say more. So Wednesday night program, like that's your midweek gathering. Yep. Some folks maybe do it on a Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever. So it's 3 weeks on of maybe.
So like we're doing devoted daily is our sermon series right now. And so this sermon series, we're about to go into week 3. We're teaching the story of Noah and the ark and him being devoted daily and building.
Against all odds.
That probably getting made fun of and being called crazy.
Big boat, dry land. Questions.
Yeah, exactly. 100 years. And so, but at the next week 4, the students will come in. We're going to make it more, like a little more lighthearted. We'll do, we're going to do free snow cones and popcorn and stuff to try to make that night feel
more
like
fun.
You're not just missing church. Like but we're going to do trainings. And so our leaders have signed up to teach different breakouts, basically.
Oh, okay.
And that Wednesday night, students will get to decide what breakout they go to. And each one will be like, here's how you actually apply what we've been talking about the last 3 weeks in some way to your life, and then work on it together. And so, like devoted daily, we're talking about like, do you have a daily calendar? Because like you have to prioritize things if you're going to be devoted daily. Another one is just, have you made goals this year? And so there's going to be a thing of like, if you want to be devoted daily, what are you being devoted to? And so we'll make SMART goals. What are your spiritual goals? What are your physical goals? What are your, and so they go and actually do some like hands-on training of like, this is what I'm learning. This is how I use it. Because last year we did some series that did that, but felt really convicted of like, we're telling them everything to do to be the neighbor, but I don't know if we're making like giving them the room to do it.
Well, dude, the chance to actually model it in the room and then involve other adult leaders in an authority that's not just like one mic, one stage, one room. I love it. Dude, report back, because I think that's one of those. Man, we are big fans of trying to take the time that we have with students and not just project to them what they should do, but to practice it, like to be in the room, actually like no, man, we mean make God a part of your day, and they don't just have to go, yup. It's like, no, get your calendar out. Let's figure out where God fits into your day. That's powerful, man. That's so powerful. So
Yep. And that's I grew up with always hearing you should read your word every day, but I don't know if anybody actually taught me how to do it.
Right.
Until I got like in college.
Dude, all the sermon series about how you should be in the Bible every day. Okay, let's pray and go.
And so that's why I'm like, man, if we're gonna give them a whole thing about being devoted to Scripture, then let's teach them how to like hear journal or how to ask the 3 questions or whatever it is that will help them actually understand Scripture. Like, let's give them some tangibles and not just the like feel bad that you don't know what you're doing every day.
Yeah, dude, right. So. You oughta. I'm not going to tell you how, but you oughta. Yeah. Well, Christian, you've given us some great things here. If folks wanted to get connected with you and maybe pick up some of the things about the lead team things, your serve team that you were talking about, or maybe even some of the things related to what you're trying now, or just to follow along with what's next for you guys at FBC Infuse, like what's the best way to stay connected with you, follow up with you? Yeah,
there's you can go to our church website for my email. It's just christian@fbcjinx.org. And so if you're wanting...
Which is a strong name for any minister, right? Yeah,
right.
Well done.
I didn't have much of a choice. Yeah.
Well done.
No, but yeah, you can email me for if there's like questions or resources or social media. Follow on. I got Facebook or Instagram. I'm not really active on them. I'm not like I'm not an influencer youth pastor. You're not gonna see me posting sermons and stuff. But I'll interact. I'll message you back. So I see whenever they come in. So
and if your name's Gus, get on the list.
Yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Christian, man, we've enjoyed having you so much on the show today. Thanks for sharing. And for everybody else, we'll see you back next week. Snap.